So a ton of Dolphins players are battling through injuries at the moment, with one of their high-profile athletes seen wearing a brace at practice today. This is a bit concerning considering last year injuries were a big reason to blame for why they got bounced in the playoffs. So I've got to talk about that, Brian Flores responding to the Tua Tagovailoa accusations, receivers still holding out, and more right after. First up, Ari Mirov provided us with a bit of an update on the CeeDee Lamb contract situation on a podcast via the 33rd Team. To give a quick summary, he basically said that the Cowboys and CeeDee's representation think very differently when it comes to the length of contracts. The Cowboys prefer to sign players to longer deals, like Tyron Smith, who signed an 8-year contract, Zach Martin signed a 6-year deal, and then Trayvon Diggs signed a 5-year contract. On the other hand, CeeDee's agent, Tory Dandy, is notorious for securing shorter deals, like 3 or 4 years for his players, so once that deal expires, they can get a new deal that pays them around whatever the market value is at the time, which makes complete sense to me. But either way, it appears the main sticking point right now is the length of contract in these negotiations. And just yesterday, CeeDee Lamb posted this on his Instagram story, a picture of Tobey Maguire from the third Spider-Man movie wearing the black suit. Now, apparently, Brian Burns was posting pictures of the black-suited Spider-Man before the Panthers traded him to the Giants last year, so some are surmising that a trade is coming for Lamb. The problem is Brian Burns' nickname, or one of his nicknames, is Spider-Man. He wore Spider-Man socks on draft night 5 years ago, crouching down and flashing the Spider-Man web shooter pose on stage. So the CeeDee Lamb Spider-Man post could mean very little, or maybe a little bit of something. It's just tough to know these days because players love to post cryptic stuff like this. And right now, your guess is as good as mine as far as what's going to happen to CeeDee Lamb, but we all know that the contract saga currently continues. Another saga that continues is Ja'Marr Chase and the Bengals. He's still holding out of camp, and he's got 2 years left on his contract. He's set to make around $10 million or so this year. 5th-year option was picked up for next year, where he'll make $21 or so million. This is off the top of my head. But the problem with Ja'Marr Chase is he's still got 2 years left on his deal. The Bengals don't seem like they want to get things done with him because he has 2 years left. However, this holdout is probably going to force the Bengals' hand. Probably not the most ideal situation for them at this point in time. But sooner or later, you're going to see CeeDee Lamb probably get a deal, whether he stays or he goes. You're going to see Brandon Ayuk get a deal, whether he stays or he goes. And then you're going to see Ja'Marr Chase get a deal as well. There is a chance that he could hold out this entire time and the Bengals could play hardball. He then loses a bunch of money and says, I'll play after all. But I feel like the chances of that are a bit low. Either way, Ja'Marr Chase has put the team in a bit of a tough spot and would love to hear your thoughts on that situation as it stands right now. Next up, flag football is coming to the Olympics in 2028 with several players, including Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, Tyreek Hill, among others, already expressing interest in participating. The NFL's executive VP Jeff Miller recently talked about the potential of having some of the game's biggest stars represent the USA, and he said, quote, "Conversations are continuing to go on with the NFL Players Association, with players themselves, but obviously, the hope would be that players who want to participate in the Olympics and represent their country have the opportunity to do so. It is something that we're working on actively. And while, yes, it's still 4 years out, it's still extremely fun to envision a team full of some of the league's best players competing together against the rest of the world. I mean, could you imagine Patrick Mahomes throwing to Justin Jefferson, Ja'Marr Chase, or CeeDee Lamb in the Olympics? I know, I'm a Chiefs fan. There's a little bias here, but I feel like Mahomes' play style would be perfect for that type of format. However, not everyone is stoked about the idea of NFL players participating in the Olympics. Darrell Doucette, the quarterback of the current United States flag football team, who have won the last 4 flag football world championships, by the way, was not happy when the NFL aired a commercial promoting the 2028 Olympic Games that featured Jalen Hurts. He actually said, quote, "I think it's disrespectful that they just automatically assume that they're able to just join the Olympic team because of the person that they are. They didn't help grow this game to get to the Olympics. Give the guys who helped this game get to where it's at their respect." He then argued that there's a huge difference between the sport, talking about the difference in rules, saying some of the things they do in the NFL that they call trick plays, we're accustomed to seeing them on an everyday basis. Well, cool story, bro. But if tryouts are had, you mean to tell me that the majority of those who make the Olympic roster wouldn't be NFL players? After all, there's a reason that the guys playing flag football are playing flag football. They simply couldn't make it to the NFL. Plain and simple. Sure, having NFL players on the roster will definitely boost ratings, but then you could also argue that the growth of the NFL worldwide has also helped grow the sport of flag football. Regardless, NFL players are going to arguably be the better athlete, with the proof being they made it to the big leagues. And while you can potentially argue that the rules are different enough in flag football that it would take time and adjustments for these NFL players, I still think they would adapt pretty quickly. But hey, what do you guys think? Does Mr. Salty have a point and the NFL players should stay out of it? Or should the Olympic roster be comprised of some of the best players in the league? And speaking of the best, well, some would refer to him as the greatest of all time, while others would refer to him as a washed-up has-been. Tom Brady was on a recent live edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show, and when asked who he thinks are the current top 5 QBs in the NFL, with the obvious number 1 being Mahomes, here were his 2 through 5. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and Aaron Rodgers. I know Aaron Rodgers is one of the best to ever do it, but the guy is 40 years old and coming off of an Achilles tear. There's not enough ayahuasca in the world, guys, to convince me that Aaron Rodgers is still a top 5 quarterback. However, you can make a case for a few different guys, such as Jalen Hurts. Some would say CJ Stroud, though I think he needs another nice year in the league first. And then others could even argue Matthew Stafford. He's been doing no looks and sidearm slinging it way before Mahomes ever was. But for the love of all that is holy, Aaron Rodgers is not top 5 anymore. Do you agree with me here or nah? Now, someone who is at top 5 at their position is Tyreek Hill. He was seen out at practice today, though, wearing a removable brace on his right hand and is dealing with what Cameron Wolfe calls a minor injury. He was in uniform and had a helmet, so that's a good sign. However, he wasn't seen out there catching any passes today in teams, but the fact he was involved in some capacity in parts of individual practice seems positive. It's definitely something to monitor moving forward, though, and either way, minor or not, probably minor, I'm still sure Dolphins fans are at least in a bit of a panic mode, considering they have 20 players currently battling some kind of injury. They are probably having flashbacks galore in Miami right now to last year before the wildcard game against KC, when half the Dolphins defense was out with injuries. Jerome Baker, Andrew Van Ginkel, Cameron Good, Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips, Xavier Howard all missed that game due to injury, and they were down so bad they had to sign 87-year-old Justin Houston and 69-year-old Bruce Irvin just to have enough bodies out there on the field. So I don't know what's going on down there, but hopefully they can get healthy for the season, because injuries are the absolute worst part of the game that nobody likes to see, regardless of which team you root for. And while we're talking about the Dolphins, Brian Flores spoke to the media today and addressed the comments made by Hawk Tua Tagovailoa yesterday. If you live under a crack rock and haven't heard, Tua claimed that Brian Flores told him he sucked at his job every day for 2 years and that he didn't deserve to be in the position he's in, with Tua even referring to Flores as a terrible person. I covered this a lot more in depth in yesterday's video, so go check that out if you haven't already. But as for today, Flores took to the podium this afternoon, and before he spoke, Viking safety Josh Metellus and defensive tackle Harrison Phillips went and stood by him as a show of support, which my editor, who's a Vikings fan, Troy, he thinks that was very cool to see, but most other fans, including myself, thought it was corny as hell. Though I get what they were trying to communicate here. They stand with Flores and think he's a great coach. Flores himself said it meant a lot. I've gotten a lot of support from people in this building and other buildings as well. I was flooded with text messages yesterday, so that's nice. But at the same time, you know, this is a team sport. I don't ever want it to be about anything that's specific to me. He also has an ongoing lawsuit with the NFL, so probably wants to avoid as much unnecessary drama as humanly possible. But in regards to what he actually said about Tua in his presser, have a listen.
I just want to say, look, I'm genuinely happy for the success that Tua's had, and I really wish him nothing but the best. You know, player relationships are very important to me. More than anything, I'm just focused on the Vikings, the 2024 Vikings, the players we have. You know, I'm excited about this group. Look, I've done a lot of reflecting and on this situation, and I think there's things that I could do better, and I've grown in that way, and I've tried to apply the things that I could do better and the things that I've learned, over the last 2-3 years. But I would say over the long haul, I've had a lot of great relationships over my 21-year career here in the league.
So yeah, while he didn't technically dispute any of the claims that Tua made about him, he repeatedly said that he's always learning and growing as a coach. Then when he was asked if he has any plans to reach out to Tua, he didn't rule out the possibility, but said his focus right now is on the Vikings, and he doesn't want this situation to take away from the guys in their locker room as they gear up for the upcoming season. I mean, let's be honest, he's probably not going to reach out to Tua, but it's all good. Tua said what he said. Flores addressed it, and that doesn't change the fact that he still has a job to do here right now as the Vikings defensive coordinator. But what do you guys think? Are you team Tua? Are you team Flores? Are you team who cares? Let me know either way in the comments down below. And with that, the huddle has been broken. So until next time,